So, um, so yeah. So here I am. My name's Astri. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Astri.
And my sobriety date is August the 18th, 1979. And yes, I'm happy to be here. And if I use that, I'll keep looking to the side. I'm used to an hour hand. So I was born in Norway. My memory from as far back as I can remember, I think, is very common in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is that I just didn't feel like I fit in. I felt less than everybody around me. I felt like I didn't even belong in my own family. All of my siblings were fair-skinned and blonde-haired, and I had pitch black hair. You can't really tell in the middle of the winter, but my skin is a little bit darker than theirs as well. So even in my own family, I kind of questioned if I belonged there. And when I was 9 years old, we moved to America, and in my mind, this was like a chance to start over. It was going to be different. Now I was going to fit in. I was going to be just like the other kids. I was going to be like those kids that were better than me, and I was going to be like them when I came to America. And when I came to America, it was really hard to fit in because I didn't speak English. So just from the very beginning, I didn't fit in. I felt different. I felt less than. Again, I started, actually, I heard somebody else say that I started all of my misbehaviors long before I ever really was drinking. Although I come from a family where, even in Norway when I was very little, the parties were at people's homes, and it wasn't unusual to let the little kids have a little sip of alcohol off of people's drinks. So I really don't remember my first drink. What I remember is that I loved those parties. I loved how I felt at those parties. It felt like I belonged. And it wasn't until I'd been sober a long time that I kind of had a light bulb moment. Oh, it was those sips of people's drinks, right? So it started, long before I really was consciously searching for a drink. I started smoking when I was in the 4th grade, and when we moved to Seattle from Kenmore, I got with a group of kids that were smoking and drinking, and I was drinking in elementary school whenever we could steal it from the people's parents and things like that, and the same with cigarettes. When I was 14 years old, I met Kathy, and Kathy was my best friend since I was 14. I like to tell that she came from Idaho. She was a year older than me and 2 years ahead of me in school. She was really smart, and she was very worldly because she was from Wallace, Idaho. And I don't know if you guys know, but she told me they have whorehouses there. And she would tell us stories about, how the mayor and the sheriff and all those guys would be going up those back stairs to those whorehouses. And I just thought she was the coolest. She was so cool. And I wanted to be just like her. And I was hanging out with her, and I was hanging out with her high school friends. And we were partying from the beginning. And that's kind of just what it was. I partied whenever I could. I skipped school. I got into fights. I was violent starting in elementary school. I was absolutely not in touch with my feelings. If somebody said something in English that I didn't understand, instead of going to somebody and saying, what does that really mean? I assumed it was something negative, and I would just beat them up. So that started in elementary school, and it continued into junior high. I was a bully in junior high. And I didn't fight girls hardly. I mostly just fought boys. And yeah, that's how it went. And I hated myself. And I hated what my reputation was. I hated that I had this rep that I had to continue to defend as the badass in school. So in 1967, My parents, I was getting in trouble with the police. I was getting brought home by the police, which is what they did back then. Even when I got caught shoplifting, they just brought you home. They didn't, you know, and I'm damn lucky, because nowadays the police get called and you get a criminal record early on. And I'm just because of what happened with my future in my career, that I'd have had a completely different track. So anyway, so in 1967, my parents thought the problem was Seattle, that I was getting in all that trouble. So they bought a house in Redmond. We moved to the east side. And I thought, this is 1967. It's like peace and love is coming on the scene. And I thought, here's another opportunity for me to become somebody different. And that's what I did. I became a peace and love hippie over there in Redmond. With my patched clothes. We had me here on Halloween. Because that was me, beads and long hair and using other substances besides alcohol, because that's what was happening out there on the east side. There were people there with money and they were buying everything, and I didn't have to buy much. That same summer, Kathy and I went to visit went to visit a guy. We had met a bunch of guys actually that were AWOL from the Navy. We met them down at Green Lake, and they had stolen a car, and we went joyriding with them, and we went down 65th in Seattle there, and heading down that hill, they ran into a tree, and we split. So one of the guys in that car was in the Bremerton Naval Hospital later, and so we were going to go visit him. He had made a friend there that was getting out, and his name was DJ. And this guy that I went to see said, I just want you to show him Seattle. He's getting discharged, and we just want you to show him Seattle. So we took him to Best Cafe, because that was Seattle as far as I was concerned. That's where we hung out, in the back parking lot. Best Cafe was much smaller back in those days. Some of y'all know that. Some of you younger folks don't. But it was much smaller, and we hung out in the back parking lot, and we peeled potatoes so that we could sit there all night, and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And so we brought him there to show him, what my life was like. And anyways, I ended up kind of being with him, and he introduced me to things that I hadn't done, different ways of making money out there. It was mostly, crime. We were panhandling, but also just we would set up ways for me to lure somebody in so that he could. Yeah. Anyways, we just did. We were into a lot of street crime, and anyways, I got kicked out of the house and moved in. Decided I was going to move in with him. So hitchhiked from Redmond to. Back to Seattle. This was in 1968. Hitchhiked to Seattle, 69. 68, 69. Anyways, hitchhiked to Seattle, moved in with him into his car. And so now he and I are living in his car. And we start that summer traveling up and down the coast and across the mountains. He had a business that he was also operating out of his car. And that's kind of how we lived. And then we got busted summer. We were heading down to San Francisco because I wanted to wear flowers in my hair, and I wanted to do that. So we had a carload of people and a carload of stuff, and got busted down in Tillamook, Oregon. Went to jail and sat there for a while. But anyways, the judge decided that I had gotten mixed up with a bad bunch, and so they dismissed the charges and sent me home. And then a couple of the guys there got prosecuted, but I also got out with directions to never come back to Oregon. So everybody's back, and because I got busted and was, I ended up back home. My parents took me back. I went back for my senior year of high school, and I did manage to graduate, just barely. And I graduated and a month or two later, realized that I was pregnant. And my father was an alcoholic, and his alcoholism was, um, well, he was violent, and he also, towards the end, he died at age 49. I was 25 when he passed, but towards the end of his drinking, he'd become this religious fanatic, and he spent his days drinking and reading a Bible and taking notes and speaking into a tape recorder about what he believed. And it was a lot of weird things, but one thing he believed was that Jesus actually walked in England, that Jesus was from England. And so, I mean, it was very bizarre. But when he found out that I was pregnant and I wasn't married, that was not okay. And so I again got kicked out of the house. It was 1970, and I'm a hippie, and I am not going to fold to establishment ideas like marriage. So no, I'm too cool for that. So I moved back in with DJ into his car, and we're back. I'm getting bigger and bigger and traveling up and down the coast and across the mountains, making money the way we do. And it's December. Baby's due in March. It's December in Spokane. We're sleeping in a car. Who just said brr? Oh, exactly. I said to DJ, it's cold out here. Maybe we should get married so that we can move back in with my parents. And so we decided to do that. So we went and got a preacher, got a licensed preacher. And I'm not sure exactly when we went back, but I think it was somewhere in January we went back. And yep, now we're married. We moved in with my parents, and Amber's due in March. But Amber decided she liked February, and I had no insurance. I was supposed to apply for welfare and all that stuff, and didn't do any of that. So I went into labor, and my parents paid out of pocket, for the birth of that child. And DJ got a little job in a nursing home in Seattle, and we rented this little house right down from where my mom and dad lived. And that first month, he would go to work, and I was being a mom, and I was cooking, and I wasn't drinking, and I wasn't using, and he was going, and sometimes he'd come home, and sometimes he wouldn't, and sometimes he came home sober, sometimes he didn't, sometimes he came home alone, sometimes he brought a party. And that was the first month. The next month, he had lost the job. We didn't have money for rent, but we stayed. But the next month, we just packed up in the middle of the night and moved back into the car. And so now it's my daughter and me and him, and we're living in a car, and we're making money the way we know how to make it, up and down the coast and across the mountains. And that's the way that went for a while. Kathy had moved into the project. She had 2 kids by now, and she was married. And she had moved into the projects, and we would sometimes sleep on people's couches, and we slept on Kathy's couch for a few days. And Kathy said, why don't you apply to live in the projects? So I thought, all right, I can do that. So, I filled out the paperwork. They asked what my current address was, OHH 311, any street anywhere. That was my address back then. It was a Volvo. But I was accepted. So the 3 of us moved into the projects, and I thought I had arrived. It was a 2-bedroom duplex with the whole backyard. It was in White Center. The whole backyard was fenced in, the whole block, a whole block where Amber could run. She was 18 months old. She could run up and down that whole backyard, pretty cool. And the relationship was what it was. I tried not to drink. I'd go for periods of time without drinking. When I drank, something always happened. I had really poor judgment. I had really just not such great ideas about what was a good idea. And DJ had gotten involved in, heroin. So he was a heroin addict, I was an alcoholic, and the two really didn't match very well because he would disappear for days while he's on these runs, and I would get pissed and I would get drunk, and he would come home, and then we would battle, and it was just ugly. And Amber was about 3 years old, I think, when that relationship finally ended. I was still married, but he left, and I stayed in the projects for a while. I got involved in other ways of making money. I met other people who had creative ideas for making money. And a couple years after that, I just felt horrible about the way I was living. And I asked my parents if Amber and I could move back in. And during that time, when I was getting ready to move back in, my father died. Practicing alcoholic at age 49. I moved back in. I remember I was drunk the whole time after my father died. I just was drunk. I don't remember a whole lot. I remember fighting with people and taking my mom's 67 Camaro and driving back into Seattle to be with Kathy sometimes, and I'd come back, and I remember my mom. I remember Amber's 5 years old. She's sitting on my mom's lap, and she's saying, "Don't." We call her Mudmud. It means mother's mother. She said, "Don't worry, Mudmud. I'll take care of you." It's my 5-year-old daughter, not me. My 5-year-old daughter. So Amber ended up moving upstairs to live with my mom. I lived in the basement where I mostly just drank. And I hated my mom because I felt like she was stealing my daughter from me. And Amber probably had the most comfortable life that she'd had so far. She was getting real food, you know, not the crap that I was able to pull together. So she probably had a really good life, but I was really pissed. In 1978, I decided I needed to leave town. So I took my mom's 67 Camaro and her credit card, and I headed out across the country. And I was gone for a few months. And when I came back, I called Kathy and I said, "Hey, I'm back in town. Let's go do something." And she said, "Oh, no, I don't drink anymore. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous." I said, "We're not alcoholics." And she said, "Well, maybe you're not, but I am." And so I started kind of just doing what I'd been doing, and I'd call her periodically because Kathy had a history of trying different things to try to get her shit together. And, you know, she tried religion, she tried shrink, she tried all kinds of things, and, you know, gave up on them. So I just assumed this AA thing she was going to give up on as well. So I just kind of called her periodically, and when I called her, she'd say, "Well, why don't you come to an AA meeting with me?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm not an alcoholic." And eventually I said, "Well, hey, listen, I'll make you a deal. You come out with me, and I'll come to a meeting with you." And she says, "All right." So I took my mom's car again, picked her up. She was still in the projects, picked her up in White Center there and took her down to the Epicure restaurant. Anybody know that place? It's just a dark, seedy cocktail lounge. Trying to sell enough food to, you know, to be able to sell liquor. And so we went in there in the middle of the day, and I'm looking around like I usually did if I went to a bar during the day, judging everybody that's in there drinking during the day, for Christ's sake, and ordering alcohol. And so I ordered alcohol, Kathy ordered coffee, and I would finish a drink, and she would say, "You ready to go to a meeting?" And I'd say, no, I'd order another drink, she'd order coffee, and because what was going to happen, as far as I'm concerned, is eventually she was going to drink. you know, she couldn't just sit there drinking coffee while I'm drinking. Kathy's probably about 2 months sober about this time. So we just kept doing that, and eventually I knew she wasn't going to drink, and I just kind of went, all right, well, deal's a deal. All right, let's just go to your meeting then. So I drove to Fremont, to the Aurora Fellowship Hall in Fremont, and we went up those stairs. I don't remember driving there. I'm not sure if I remember walking up the stairs. I do remember sitting in the back of that room. I don't remember anything anybody said. I remember moving forward with Kathy towards the front of the room. I'm assuming probably that Kathy was picking up ashtrays and dumping ashtrays, you know, on her way up, because that is what we used to do. And when we got to the front, this guy with a big nose, a big chin, no teeth, welcome me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, oh, no. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just here with my friend. And that was a guy named Maynard, who ended up being a really good friend and was a really good member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't get sober right away. I didn't love Alcoholics Anonymous. I kept coming periodically to talk Kathy out of being there. I went there to tell her who, was smoking dope on the back porch. Who did I drink with across the street the other night? This person who says they've got 5 years sober, they're lying. Nobody stays sober for 5 years. That's BS. That continued for a while. I used AA the same way that I used the after hours bars if I was going out. So if I didn't find Mr. Good Enough in the bars, sometimes I would come to a hoot owl at Fremont. And the hoot owls at Fremont used to go until everybody who wanted to talk had talked. So sometimes they went till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'd come in there and look around the room and think, who is Mr. Lucky tonight? And that's how I kept coming back. I mean, it was either to talk Kathy out of being there or to just find something to fill up this hole that was inside of me, because I didn't really know what I needed. I didn't know it was a spiritual need that I had. So what ended up happening is I went out on a 4-day drunk with a member of Alcoholics Anonymous who had been sober for a short period of time. After the 4th day, during the 4th day, I had been hearing the things. I'd been coming around AA then for probably about 10 months. And the things that I'd been hearing were kind of rolling around in my head. And I understood something while I was out there that I hadn't understood. I had heard you guys say it's not how much you drink or how often, it's what happens to you when you drink. And I thought when I heard that, it meant the things that I did that I didn't want anybody to know about. The way that I was making a living, the fact that my daughter basically took care of me and took care of my mom. The things that I didn't want people to know. The fact that I used to wake up in my own vomit. The fact that, just all gross things that so many of us have dealt with. And that's what I thought they were talking about. But when I was out there, I realized what happens to me when I drink, that's the same as what happens to you when you drink, is that if I take a drink, I'm going to take another drink. And I'm going to continue to drink until I pass out or run out or get locked up or something. So that was like new information to me. And at the end of that 4th day, I said to this guy, I don't want to drink anymore. I'm an alcoholic. And he said, yeah, me too. So went to an AA meeting, admitted for the first time that I was an alcoholic. The truth is I thought I was going to get some huge reaction. I like to say I thought either the whole room was going to go, oh my God, she's an alcoholic, or the roof was going to open up, doves were going to fly out, music was going to play, and, oh, Astri's seen the light. But what happened was I got called on. I said, my name's Astri, I'm an alcoholic, and the whole room went, hi, Astri. And that was that. And I did not do everything right from the beginning. I was afraid. I knew this thing worked for you. I just didn't know if it could work for me. So I just grabbed onto Kathy. I went where she went, hung out with the people she hung out with. I read what she read. I couldn't comprehend a thing. And it took a while for me to get a sponsor, to really get into that book. I started reading it with a group of women, and we started going through it sentence by sentence, line by line. Eventually started doing everything that it said to do, little by little. Things started to change for me. I started to feel better. I started to be the better mom. Amber was coming to meetings with me. She was 8 years old when I got sober, and she started hanging out at the AA meetings, and she started hanging out with the kids of the other moms that were bringing their kids to the meetings. Back then there was a back room, and the kids hung out back there. Eventually there was an Alateen meeting back there that she was going to. And everything, I ended up getting pregnant in sobriety, and my water broke at a noon meeting in AA. I mean, I have lived my life in Alcoholics Anonymous. Amber's 16th birthday, she celebrated up at Wanda's. I went up there, Wanda's Club 4, which was a club up in Linwood. I went up there early with, I think it was 16 candles, and asked the DJ if at midnight when she was going to turn 16, if he would play 16 candles. And there's a guy that she had a little crush on, and I asked him if he would ask her to dance when that song came on. And so that's what happened. And I walked a cake out to the middle of the floor, and they had a food fight. The kids that were there had a food fight with the cake. I mean, I have lived my life in Alcoholics Anonymous since I got here. I grew up. It was a slow go for me. I'm a slow learner. But eventually, I started sponsoring women, and the thing that the book says was shown to me. I mean, I can read something, but until I experience it, I don't really get it. And so, I mean, I worked the steps. I did my 5th step. But then when I started sponsoring and I listened to a 5th step, that's when I got it. It's like, oh, this is what it's about. This is the backwards program. It's a backwards program. It's like, it's not that I need to get something. I recover when I give something. The more I give, the more I have recovery. That's what this program is. It always reminds me, Deanna, my other daughter that my water broke in the AA meeting, she was in track. And she used to put her sweatshirt on backwards so that the hood was like this. And she'd go, I'm backwards, Mom. I'm backwards, ma'am. And and that's what I think about. It's like, it's the backwards program. It's the backwards program. That's what this is. It's backwards. It makes no sense. You can't tell those people out there in the world that that's how this program works. It's not about going to therapy and having a therapist, talk to me and walk me through this and walk me through that. No, it's get out of yourself, and go see what you can do for somebody else. That's how this program works. And it's the same. I was slow to get into general service. Actually, Carla was in general service before I was. A few of the women I sponsor got into general service before I did. I was slow. I was 25 years sober when I finally became an alternate GSR, and learned so much and continue. I'm still learning about this program. And I did too. I just did the next thing. Ernie Mills, who's passed away now. He's the one that kept saying to me, Astri, I think you'll be good at this. You should try this. I think you'll be good at this. And have you ever been to PNC? You should go have a look at that. I'd sneak into PNC and see, what the heck is that? And I'd go and just do this reconnaissance on things that people thought I'd be good at and find out about it first. Because I just don't think I can do that. I don't think I'm good enough to do that. I still need, to do a lot of work around this program. I need to continue to work. I am so grateful. I went for years and years not getting asked to sponsor anymore. It was women who had a sponsor either die or something, so they already were sober. And they're the ones that were asking me to sponsor them. But 3.5 weeks ago, a brand new woman asked me to sponsor her. It's the first time that I've sponsored a newcomer in so long. And it's so great. It is so great to see this thing through a brand new person's eyes again. I am so, so grateful for that. I love this program. I love my life. My kids too. My daughter, Amber, just turned 50. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay. And Deanna just turned 40. Um, and I have two grandkids. One's 18 and one's 13. And everybody knows that I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody has been to Alcoholics Anonymous, my grandkids too. And it's just a beautiful life. And they have picked things up. Both of my kids went to Alateen. My grandkids haven't, but who knows? But just the seeds of the program are in the way they live their life. Can't help but be, because they've lived it with me. So I absolutely love my life. I'm grateful. I have to say also, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and all of you guys are the best thing that ever happened to me. And you're the best thing that ever happened to my whole family. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for letting me share.